Hello everyone, this is Honokatsu welcoming you to Tales from the Backlog, an occasional series I'll be doing where I somewhat review titles in my large game backlog. Today I'll be talking about Blue Reflection. Having pretty much no new releases I decided to pick up in this September, apart from the excellent Link's Awakening, I decided to shift my focus to my slowly shrinking backlog. The game that called to me this time around was a Gust developed JRPG that launched back in September of 2017, and that I'd picked up shortly after its release, having heard a bit about it over the course of its development. There was something about the washed-out pastel color schemes, string and piano complemented trance soundtrack, and the frills and friendship themes of magical girl stories that had me very invested in trying this game. Fast forward 2 years and I finally sat down and played it. The game is about Hinako Shirai, a ballet dancer who was forced to abandon her passion due to a knee injury a year prior to the events of the game. Upon arriving to school, she meets two of her classmates, Yuzuki and Raimu Shijo, referred to as Yuzu and Lime throughout most of the game because citrus puns. She notices that they appear to be paying an unusual amount of attention to her, attention that seems to be completely disconnected from her ballet career. This is supported by them immediately suggesting she become class rep for the upcoming school festival not long after they meet. Through a few shenanigans involving another classmate, Hinako finds herself transported to another world where she has magical girl powers thrust upon her. She quickly notices that she can move freely unencumbered by her injured knee in this form. She finds her way back to her own world by fighting some bizarre creatures that are chasing after her. The next day, Yuzu and Lime invite Hinako to the rooftop where they reveal why they've been so attentive of her. The sisters are also magical girls, known as reflectors in this game, and sense the potential in their classmate. As reflectors, they're tasked with repairing broken fragments of rampant emotions and protecting these fragments from demons known as Sephiroth. Hinako is originally hesitant to accept this responsibility, but eventually decides to go forward with it, supported by the information that if they complete their quest and save the world, the other world, known as the Common, will grant her one wish. The story is first and foremost about strengthening friendships through empathy, about building your relationships by helping your friends through what is troubling them, but not before understanding what and how they're feeling. These problems range from struggling with a crush to not being able to express yourself in social situations, to losing the respect you had for someone you admired who turned out to be a creep. Most of these problems are relatable and do get more complex and serious as the story goes on. Eventually the game shifts its focus from Hinako's friends and more into Hinako herself and how she handles a situation when things don't turn out to be exactly as they seem. The game has a total of 12 chapters, with the last 2 being the point of no return, as well as 5 intermissions. About 2/3 of these chapters are centered on introducing new characters, and fortunately this is where the story falters. The game introduces too many characters too fast, resulting in what feels like a barrage of new information when you don't even have enough information about those that have already been established. This results in most of the characters appearing in the early game being ultimately forgettable because the game doesn't give you nearly enough time to get to know them before thrusting a new character into the spotlight. To add to this, most of the early chapters feel inconsequential and ultimately pointless, as the game took a very long time getting me engaged. Otherwise, when the game reaches the last 2 characters to be introduced, a math prodigy and an actress, and subsequently the JRPG staple of the gang loses all sense of direction and will to fight, it succeeds quite well. The finale is satisfying as well as slightly emotional, but leaves the door open a crack, making a sequel not entirely impossible. Producer Junzo Hosoe, director Azusa Takahashi, and character designer / meme lord Mel Kishida are open to making a sequel and have semi-confirmed that something is in the works. The graphics in this game are rather effective, especially when it comes to rendering the artworks faithfully. Between this very effective rendition and the use of lighting, it has this distinct, slightly melancholic feel that matches well with the story. The Sephiroth are well designed, especially when it comes to the big bad bosses, which look very intricate, massive, and angelic, but nonetheless imposing. There are a few issues with the human skin textures, however, as characters will occasionally look very plasticky in the common specifically, but it doesn't take away from the overall look and feel of the game. The hair physics are well done despite all forms of physics, including the usually not too noticeable other forms of physics, from going completely wild when they reset as you exit menus. The environments, however, feel very empty, which is a shame. All varieties of the common are beautifully designed, but a few factors take away from the beauty of it, such as having next to nothing to interact with, and the fact that most areas are empty save for a few things. The same goes for the school, which is where you'll actually be spending most of your time. It doesn't actually feel like people actually go to school, and rather like it's the middle of summer vacation, despite there being NPCs scattered around. Most of these rather unremarkably designed NPCs don't do much and just stand there unless they want something from you. There are a few things on walls and desks that Hinako will comment on when prompted, but there are so little of them that it feels lifeless for the most part. The menus are rather simple and geometric, but do their job very well, despite animations being a tad long. The sound design is relatively unremarkable, but not in a bad way. They do their job, and I didn't once think they were out of place or unnecessary, but they didn't stand out in any way. To be honest, I have no memory of what the sound effects sound like at the time being. The voice acting is good, but nothing to write home about. It's standard, decent Japanese voice acting. I do have a slight issue with the translation, however. In many sections, such as the battle victory screen, there are no subtitles at all, and some of these sections have enough voice acting that this feels like a problem. The music is frankly amazing, which is to be expected of a Gust game. It's composed by Hayato Asano, and it's easily the thing that stood out the most about the game to me. I'll likely have to track down the soundtrack at some point just to listen to it on repeat. It's slightly melancholic, but also hopeful, which reflects the vibe of the game very well and complements the washed-out color palette of the game. Its electronic bass lines and drum loops paired with the strings and piano sections will live on in my brain for days to come. The gameplay is divided into 3 parts: the common, free time, and boss fights. The first 2 parts are intertwined, while the third is an occasional affair that happens every 2 or 3 chapters. During free time, you can wander the school, complete side quests, and hang out with friends to build friendship points. More on that later. The side quests range from collecting items in the common to defeating enemies to crafting specific items. Completing side quests give you rating points, which are necessary to advance the story, but you can rack them up fast enough that it isn't a slog to get through. For example, I had 200 rating points more than necessary at the end of the game, and I hadn't completed all of the side quests. Unfortunately, the side quests themselves tend to be a bit repetitive due to the common not being particularly interesting. The crafting quests specifically are confusing, and in my experience, the only time you'll ever actually use the crafting stations. More on that later as well. The craft quests appear asking for, say, a face mask and something called a memory of affection. You can only craft one of these items at the time of request issuing, and you can only unlock the other 3 chapters later by completing another crafting quest, which you once again can only craft one of the 2 required items until you unlock the other. It doesn't feel particularly well thought out, and it's what keeps these crafting quests from being enjoyable, as the items you need are relatively easy to come by as long as you fight various Sapphira regularly, which brings us to the second portion of the gameplay. You can access the common when prompted during side quests, which is usually accompanied by a student giving off smoke and flailing around, and when a portal opens up on the rooftop sometime after the midpoint of the game. It's divided into 4 regions based on the classifications of emotions: fear, sorrow, joy, and anger, with them sometimes mixing. Unfortunately, as mentioned earlier, there isn't much to do in these regions, as pretty as they look, and so the only thing that differentiates them apart from look is the enemies you'll find in them, which I suppose is the perfect segue into the battle system. During your average battle, it's rather simple. It has the battle timeline like any average Gust RPG, which tells you when each person involved in the battle will have their turn. Each move has a different waiting period, with some having a character act almost twice in a row, while others have them wait until everyone else has had their turn. Speaking of moves, they're divided into 2 categories, attack and support. Both use MP, apart from the standard attack move, which can be regenerated using support skills or the handy-dandy ether charge move, which also helps raise your overdrive percentage, which you can use to multiply moves in one turn, adding 1 more move per increment of 30%, and eventually unlocking an almighty team attack once you have more than 90%. You can also use the overdrive percentage to attempt to put the odds in your favor between each character or monster's turn. Your 4 options are heal, guard, haste, speeding up only your team's turns, and support and heal. Like most turn-based battle systems, it feels a bit bare bones at first, but once you unlock abilities and get the hang of things, it's a good time. However, Blue Reflection remains on the easy side even at the medium difficulty level, as battling doesn't seem to be the main emphasis of the game, not to mention that HP, MP, and Ether all recharge at the end of each battle screen. There's also a complete lack of EXP in this game, the only rewards given to you in battle are items for crafting. EXP is awarded through building your friendship with classmates and completing side quests. Complete enough and you'll be given a point to assign to one of 4 stat categories, which also unlocks additional moves in battle. Building friendship points also awards you fragments, which you can equip to your various abilities in battle to give them stat boosts or perks. It's a decent concept, with the only problem being that you can very easily farm friendship, making most of these events feel a tad insignificant in the grand scheme of things. You can just go see a classmate and invite them to walk home with you, end the day, and repeat until their friendship bar is maxed out. It takes away from the weight to the character events and takes out any form of work, especially when the few dialogue options that are presented to you don't actually change much apart from making the bar go up a bit faster. Building friendship also adds a little extra something to battle during boss fights as well, which I mentioned earlier. Your classmates can join you in battle and provide help in the manner of stat buffs, healing, and the occasional basketball or friggin' missile strike to deal damage. Using supporter abilities also adds a hefty 10 to 20% to your ether percentage, so you can quickly start stacking up attacks once you've unlocked all of these characters. It adds an extra layer to battle, which makes it more complex and satisfying, especially when they will take damage from enemy attacks and will temporarily retreat for more than a few turns once their invisible HP reaches 0. The main problem with the gameplay is that it offers a lot of things to do, but no concrete reason to do them or any reward that makes them worth your while. Apart from collecting items to craft stuff, why should you go and battle? Why should you even craft items? Well, with your HP and MP recharging at the end of battle, as well as the ability to consume items in battle being completely absent, they don't actually serve any purpose apart from side quests, which don't award you with anything worthwhile apart from more consumable items that you won't use, and rating points which you don't even need that many of. To add to that, every in-game day finishes with 3 options. Prepare for the next day, take a bath, and go to sleep early. There's no reason to choose either of the first 2 options because they don't add anything to your experience beyond a few lines of inconsequential dialogue. There's also an in-game mobile texting app, which offers text conversations between Hinako and her classmates. Most of them aren't necessary, but will give you a few laughs and some feels towards the end of the game, and are somewhat like actual conversations you'd have in a group chat with your friends. Hinako won't automatically reply though, you have to do that yourself. And there appears to be a time limit to them because I've seen a few notifications go by with the classmates being mad that I didn't reply to their requests for food in time. There's also a mobile Tamagotchi type game which is just for fun and largely useless, a blog that belongs to one of the classmates, and an app that gives you hints to find small plushies that are scattered throughout the school. None of these in-game apps actually have any real purpose, but they don't feel like they should either. They're just random fun in my mind and don't pretend to be more than that. Apparently most of the supporting characters were meant to become reflectors and become party members, but due to budget and deadline restraints, they decided to make them supporters and concentrate on your permanent party of Hinako, Yuzu, and Lime and her giant bear. It doesn't bother me too much, especially with EXP being earned in a non-conventional way and no true reason to battle and grind. Even with all its faults, I enjoyed the game. It took a while for me to get invested in the story and its characters, but once I did and once I got properly used to the battle system, I was in. The ending left me a bit emotional, and the dang text just amplified that, and to finish the game actually left a small void. Plus, oh, that music. I'm very curious to see what the rumored sequel will bring to the table, and I'll most likely pick it up near launch if it ever comes into existence. Blue Reflection is a game that has a lot of potential but unfortunately trips over its concepts and overall execution. The story takes a while to properly ramp up, which may alienate some players, but once it does get more complex and intense, it does it really well. The overall look of the game is very effective, the music is addictive and satisfying, but is undermined by mildly lackluster gameplay and empty-feeling environments. With that, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Honokatsu signing off. Catch you later. Hey there, me again.
You thought you'd heard the last of me, didn't you? Well, you thought wrong.
Just wanted to say, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, and if you wish to see more from me and support my channel, please subscribe. If you've played this game, I'd be very curious to know what you thought of it. You can always tweet at me at HonokatsuLPs to let me know, as well as if you have any comments about this video or any tips and tricks you want to share. Once again, thank you very much for watching. This is Honokatsu, signing off.
Bye.